I want to be honest with you guys and tell you that we are quite possibly doomed. And the reason being is that it has become abundantly clear that this world has gone soft. Soft in a variety of ways that have led to the ultimate demise and destruction and collapse of our society right before our eyes. And I really do think that a majority of my audience, based on the analytic data on the back end of YouTube, would confirm that the majority of my audience is of an age group that grew up in a time where this country wasn't soft. You could literally go out and tell somebody how you felt without worrying about them complaining that you were picking on them, or that, oh no, you can't say that, you can't talk about that, that's not funny. What if it happened to you? And that's the problem. Everybody has got their panties all balled up in a wad and are afraid to be real, afraid to potentially hurt somebody's feelings by telling the truth. And instead we'd rather silence those who will speak the truth, who do speak the truth, and appease those who are bringing us down, making us weaker, making us vulnerable. We're gonna be a country of pansies, where if we were to ever be attacked by another country, an enemy, we would be worried about hurting their feelings more so than protecting our home. And it's crazy. It's crazy. I ain't gonna lie. I see this crap in the comments. I see it in the comments, and I'm just like, man, this is where we ended up. How did we end up here? The apartment, the management staff for the apartment complex, they sent out a notice, and they were like, we're going to come by and swap out your air filters. We're going to come by and swap out your air filters. And we're like, they just swapped them out like a month ago, but whatever. Okay. So they come about 10 o'clock and they bang on the door like they're the damn police, which is actually kind of strange because I had to have this talk with my daughter about trick questions. When you get asked trick questions, you got to have the right answer. So, ironically, I need to have the talk with my wife too, because yesterday we were getting in the car and the sheriff, one of the sheriffs, Okaloosa County Sheriff, says, "Hey, are you such and such?" See, I grew up in New York until I was like 9, and then I came to Georgia, and now I'm here in Florida. But even as a young kid, I knew if the police asked, "Are you such and such?" you don't even have an answer, because I can guarantee police are never looking for you for a good reason. Rarely are they looking for you for a good reason. I mean, we're talking about unmarked sheriff ready to just like yoke somebody up and take them off. So Michelle was like, she's like quick to answer these questions. And I think it's from, this conditioning of politeness, where we're trying so hard to not step on anybody's toes and not be rude, when just not answering is your legal right. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. That's your right. Now, he asked, who's the name wasn't Michelle, so obviously she was like, nah. But I'm like, this is the world we've come to. So anyway, the apartment complex says that they're coming in to swap these air filters. They come in, they bang on the door like they're the police. And then the maintenance team is doing the air filters and they're checking smoke detectors. But then the management comes in and it's like, we need to look around. Like, what? And then Michelle says, well, that if they would have just sent out a notice and said, we need to look around, then they wouldn't, there would have been a big problem. But again, people trying to be polite and not offend anybody, they'd rather just not tell the truth and then just hit you with it. Like, yeah, we're doing air filters, we're doing smoke detectors. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm gonna come in and look around. Now, we are leasing an apartment, so technically, they have the right to do whatever they want for the most part. And with that being said, we may not be here too much longer. We may be moving. Interestingly enough, Michelle and I randomly had a conversation, which that's pretty much all we do all day, is just have these random conversations. And it was like, well, if we weren't here, where would we be? And this is based on pure visual, all right? And not a lot of research and not a lot of thought and effort put into it. But we both kind of agreed that, like, if we weren't here, we thought that Colorado was beautiful. Colorado was beautiful. Could we go from a hot, tropical, semi-tropical, coastal beach climate, small town, beach town, to a mountainous, landlocked, colder region? I guess anything's possible. We talk about the future, and when it's just the two of us and the little one is graduated high school and off to college, and getting out of the van, getting out of the Class B, but maybe we would keep the Class B because it'd just be the two of us, and going to a Class A and just driving around the country all the time, trying not to make more babies. But we got a few years ahead of us before that day may come. But I guess that's just it. It's like, when we leave here, where are we going to go? Odds are we're probably going to buy a house. Probably going to buy a house. Waiting on this inevitable housing market crash to occur, and we can scoop up a deal. Unfortunately, interest rates are going to be the Achilles heel on this next phase, next step. The hardest part, the pain, comes from the fact that, we had 2020 interest rates in Georgia, and, you get the shock of the new interest rates, which, if we were to get like 5.5, it's like, well, that's the same interest rate we had in 2014. So, it was okay back then, but now it's like, man, you missed the good old days. Don't you miss the good old days? We watched Air last night, and it's the story of Nike and Michael Jordan, Air Jordan. Amazing movie. Really enjoyed that movie. And as I was watching that movie, I thought to myself, man, what it would be like to go back to the 80s and live then compared to now. Like, now, granted, we have lots of technology and comforts and unbelievable tech and options. But just watching how that movie recreated that time period really made it just seem so much, it made everything seem so much simpler, so much easier. Remembering 1984. Technically 1985 for me, because I wasn't born in 84 yet. But even still, I probably really more remember 1990, 1991, 92. So I'd say late 80s, early 90s to go back to that time. But then it's like, man, if I could go back to that time knowing what I know now back then, that'd be a game changer. It was funny because back then I remember cars, we had a dream of being, in the 400 horsepower club. We were running Hondas with a single overhead cam, 1.6 liter engines. Maybe we swap them out, we get dual overhead cam, 1.8 liter VTEC. But the goal was 400 horsepower. 400 horsepower club. I remember, I think it was a cover of a sport compact car magazine. It's like, yo, I want 400 horsepower. And how difficult it was to pull that off back then. And then traction was not going to be your friend. Torque was like, what is that? What is torque? Now, today, I actually saw a video by Donut, and they were breaking down the Honda's K20A engine and how showing how it was capable of producing 1,000 horsepower, revving up to 8,600, 9,000 RPM. It's crazy. But now you can go, pretty much everything's got 400 horsepower, or more. Back then, that was a big deal. It's just amazing to see how far we've come in really just a short amount of time. When it's, when we look at in terms of advancements, but then you got to think about how far we've gone back in communication, in relationships, in social interaction. It's like, as technologies move forward, we as a society have moved backwards. Maybe I'm just looking at it wrong. Maybe I'm overanalyzing it. But yeah, back then it was, back then cars were affordable. I mean, granted, we were young, we were kids, so, $20,000 for a car was a lot of money. We didn't make much money doing the little jobs that we did. But if we knew what we knew now, then it'd be a game changer. But now, if you want a Honda Civic, my first Honda Civic was like $3,500. If you want to buy a Honda Civic today, now granted mine was used, but back then you probably could have got a brand new Honda Civic for like $14,000. If you want a new Honda Civic today, that joker's like $30,000. That's inflation. That's inflation, folks. A little bit of price gouging, some inflation. But hey, what are you gonna do? Not have a car? No. You're just gonna have to make it work. You're gonna have to make some cuts, make some sacrifices, make some more money. And the price is just gonna keep going up. One day, a Honda Civic will cost $50,000. Can you believe that? Somebody left a comment on a video the other day. They said they had a 69 Camaro RS SS, I think, and they got it for like a few $100s or something years ago, decades ago. Can't do that anymore today. Everything's so expensive. But maybe if we see a crash, maybe we'll see a fire sale, mass liquidation, maybe some deals to be had and picked up. But if we see a crash, then that means people's jobs are at risk. That means the economy's not doing too well. That means a lot of people are going to be a little bit tighter with the purse strings. So the deals may be there, but who's going to take advantage of them? Who's going to buy them? I mean, I would think, like, if I could find a 991.2 911 Carrera S 2S today, maybe a 4S, for 80,000, maybe, no, I'll take that back. If I could find one for like 70,000, I think that'd be a really, really good price. 65 would be amazing. Odds are that won't happen. But even if I did, it's like, well, it's kind of lost its appeal because of the interest rates. And I'm not going to be super interested in spending cash on it just for the toy. I mean, it's got 4 seats, but you can't put 4 people in there. So I'm driving around my compromise. My Porsche Macan GTS is my compromise. It drives really good. It's a lot of fun. It's pretty quick. It's got a tune on it now. It's going to get another tune after I data log it and get it sent to Flat 6 for a custom tune. I need to install the intakes on it. I need to install the diverter valves. And I think my wheel spacers just showed up today. They won't make it faster, but it'll make it look a whole lot cooler. I'm all about fitment. I'm all about stance. That was one of the things growing up. And it was like, we always had this list, all right? It was IHE, intake, header, exhaust, right? You always wanted to do it all at one time. So you get the full power and the full sound out of your little rice burner, your torqueless wonder. But then it's like, all right, if you had enough money for intake, header, exhaust, are you going to do that? Or are you going to lower the car and put wheels on it? And then it was like, well, sometimes you didn't have enough money for all of it. So it's like, well, you could buy wheels, but the car ain't lowered. So it's going to look kind of be riding high. Or you could lower it. And now you just slammed on stock wheels. And it's like, that was the challenge. The dream would be one day, intake, header, exhaust, wheels, suspension, done. Upgraded stainless steel brake lines, swapping out some other goodies just for fun. These wheels on this car, this Porsche, you're like, well, why you got spacers? These wheels were custom built by BC Forge, and I didn't go super aggressive on the build because I didn't want to risk scrubbing or having to pull fenders or anything else that would like ruin the driving experience. Because my car folks know you modify a car too much, you can make it to the point where it's undrivable and it's not fun anymore. It's not enjoyable. So I made them semi-aggressive, but I also knew in the back of my mind, like, if I needed them to be a little bit more aggressive, I could just put spacers on them. 10 mil, 12 mil spacers and be A-okay. Because on the flip side is if I made them too aggressive, there's no turning back from that. The only option there is to ride it out the way it is, chewing up some tires, scrubbing on turns, pulling fenders, rolling fenders, or getting real crazy, chopping up fenders and going with a wide body kit, going like a Tech Art wide body kit or something. I wish they had a Rocket Bunny kit. That'd be cool. Or a Liberty Walk. But either way, it'll all work out in the end. I mean, it has no choice but to, right? You gotta take life the way that it's given to you, and then you gotta make the best or the worst out of the situation. I think, unfortunately, now a lot of people are choosing to make the worst out of the situation. But that's easy to do when you're presented with the worst of the situations. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. Providing content of the best situation gets no attention, and providing content of the worst situation gets all the attention. It's crazy.